The glorious golden age of the Tang Dynasty. The city of Chang'an had brought many bright minds from all civilizations across the world. The Arabs, the Turks, Indians, Persians, Syrians, Vietnamese, Koreans, Japanese, Jews, the Nestorian Christians, and the Byzantines all wanted to and or came to China for its splendor. The Sui dynasty of the cultural, architectural, and technological advances, the Tang dynasty with their political favor and elegant culture of Buddhism. China had once again proved to be the center of the world. Buddhism was heavily favored during this time, with cave temples, large and small statues, and the erection of pagodas. Gunpowder, newer and better medicines, and refined use of the early compass was developed. But with each rise, there is always a fall, much like the concept of the wave of a dynastic cycle. Although Buddhism continued to spread, the Confucians called this spread a corruption. Buddhism did not center its focus on the Chinese traditional beliefs of filial piety, morals, and societal roles. Buddhism was considered a salvation religion, appealing to both the upper class and the lower class. The peasantry classes were appealed by the ideas of the possibility to reincarnate as a higher class, and the upper classes were appealed by the individualism and the rituals. Ultimately, the goal was to become a subhuman super being. After that, China would then close up again, no longer favoring outsiders and their ideas, but not to the extent as the scenario of expelling the Christians. Han Yu, a famous poet and Confucian, expresses his views on the Buddhist corruption through a letter to his emperor about the emperor's choice to keep a finger bone of the Buddha in the imperial palace. Before I read parts of this primary source, many reactions and questions already occurred. Why keep such a horrible artifact, a part of a long-dead person? Why do many emperors pursue such weird habits to reach immortality? Why switch to Buddhism if it goes against traditions and take ideas from both Confucianism and Taoism? Some of these topics are mentioned in Han Yu's letter. Your Majesty's servant would submit that Buddhism is but a cult of the barbarians, and that its spread in China dates only from the later Han dynasty, and that the ancients knew nothing of it. Of old, Huang Di sat on the throne 100 years, dying at the age of 110. Han Yu later states many kings and their long lives reaching close to 100. King Mu reigned for 100 years. And as at that date, likewise, the Buddhist religion had not reached China. These examples of longevity cannot be attributed to the worship of the Lord Buddha. The Buddhist religion was in fact introduced during the reign of Emperor Ming of the Han Dynasty, and that emperor sat on the throne but 18 years. After him came rebellion upon rebellion, with short-lived monarchs. From his first argument, I relate him to a modern-day politician. Han Yu wrote delicately to the emperor, writing politely and trying not to incur his wrath. Also, he brings up facts in his argument to show validity of his argument, much like a modern-day persuasive piece. But here I already see one flaw: his use of hyperboles about the number of years the long-lived emperors reigned for. 100 years is information given more to as inspiring facts, not in a persuasive argument. But he does effectually relate longevity with tolerance to Buddhism. Next, Han Yu brings up the argument of the influence of this huge ritual on the people. He argues that if the Son of Heaven is a believer, who are we to spare our bodies? They, the peasants, would scatter their clothes and burn their money, neglect their business of lives, and cut off body parts as offerings to the god. This is graphic and somewhat true, and the belief goes against the mandate of heaven. and the peasants would stop listening to the emperor, the human form to be seen as the god, instead of being a being whom is now dead and spiritually worshipped. Hanyu continues in his letter that he does understand that rituals are important, but he calls upon the wise words of Confucius to pay all respects to spiritual beings, but to keep them at a distance. In the end, Hanyu really pulls off all the stops as he ends with a strong conclusion of telling the emperor to hand over the bone for destruction by fire or water. After reading this paper, I am reminded of a modern-day essay, despite it being written such a long time ago. It is a pity that Hanyu's efforts go to waste, as he is later exiled by the emperor for writing this letter. After China had once again closed off its communication with the outside world, a small minority of Buddhism remained, but would be constantly unfavored by the modern-day government and the people. Thank you. Here's my sources for my docs, many of which is given by Mr. Burrell. Here are all the pictures that are previous slides.